Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Joshua and I'm going to be your presenter today. So we're talking about the topic of a church windows payroll or an employee of the church. You're using church windows payroll and accounting, and the church is granting the employee an advance on a future paycheck or paychecks as the case may be. So that's what we're talking about, and that's what this document covers. I mean, it's a pretty succinct document, but the steps are kind of detailed. But as the very first topic or line on that sentence or on that document talks about, it says, in accounting, create the advanced check through accounting using enter bills, pay bills. Well, so what essentially we have to make sure is that we do have a vendor / payee in our chart of accounts for that particular vendor or payee, or for that particular employee. Okay, so if I'm going down here, my employee is Jimmy Hilliard. He is not in our chart of accounts, so we're going to go ahead and add a vendor account to the accounts payable ledger on our chart of accounts for Jimmy Hilliard. And if they're in membership, of course, you can choose them from the membership module. But we're going to do enter new vendor, and we're going to click add account. So we now show here in our accounts payable vendors right there below Jerry Williams, Jimmy Hilliard. I can now record a bill and a payment to Jimmy. Okay. Now, this is really an important step here. Is this becomes in play later on when we are talking about the repayment. So the account that we want to debit when we're entering our bills, technically you could choose any account, folks, but just for consistency's sake, we're going to go right here to System Administration and Payroll, account number setup. Takes a few seconds here, and then we're going to go right up here and we're going to choose Jimmy. And the account to which we're going to enter the bill and subsequently credit back the repayment is the base salary expense account here. So 510302. When we click down here, we see that that's the one called custodian salary. So again, when we go in and enter the bill, we're going to debit 510302 for the amount that he's requested or borrowing in advance for a payroll advance. And then when we talk about creating the deduction in payroll for the repayment, we're going to credit that same 510302 for the amount of the advance back to that. But it, frankly, folks, doesn't really matter which account you choose as long as you're entering the bill to the same expense that you're turning around and crediting the deduction to for the same amount. But we're choosing to do it to the base salary expense, okay? So now we're going to go into accounting, and here we're going to do, say, enter bills. So here we're going to say we're loaning this money to Jimmy today, so our vendor payee is going to be Jimmy Hilliard. We can enter, we're going to type in payroll advance under the comments. Tab down right here, we're going to type in either custodian. There's custodian salary 510302. We're going to enter the amount that Jimmy's requesting a payroll advance for, so we're going to say $300. And then we're going to click done, add to batch. And we're ready to do this. We're ready to turn around. He's standing in my office right now. He wants the check. We're going to do post and pay these bills. I'm not going to print the report. You may certainly if you wish, but we notice here's Jimmy. We've got the pay now box checked. I can now, print, if I'm printing a computer check or manual check, but for expediency purposes on our webinar today, we're just going to choose manual check, but I can print a computer check just like I would normally. We'll go ahead and do computer check. That's fine. And we'll do the INS button here to the right, and we'll do payroll advance, append to payment comments, click OK. There it shows up. We'll do post and print checks. Again, we're not going to print the payment transaction window, and it takes a few seconds, but it now should open up my print checks window in accounting, he said. I'm not sure why it's taking this long. There it is. So here we can just now either get next check number. That looks good. 79111 looks fine. We're going to now click print, and it should open up a preview of his check. And we're going to now send that to our printer with a check stock in the printer. We're not going to actually print that. We're going to kind of trick it into saying we printed it. We're going to send it to a PDF driver essentially. And now when I close out, and we're going to say, yep, I've grabbed it off the printer. The check is presentable. Did the checks print correctly? We're going to click yes. Okay. So now I can now sign that check and then hand that off to Jimmy. He can now take that to the bank and deposit that check. Okay. So he's now received the advance on his future pay or paychecks. Okay. So now the rest of our work essentially is done in payroll. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to go to data setup and deductions file. I need to now create a deduction here. We're going to click add in the upper right corner, and we're going to call this something like payroll advance. And we're going to leave everything here as checked except a couple things. We're not going to enter an amount, so the frequency is irrelevant. It's not a miscellaneous state tax. It does not need to show separately on the W-2. It is completely taxable. So we're going to leave everything checked, even if they're a minister. Again, the minister box overrides anything to do with Social Security or Medicare, but this needs to be included as part of their taxable earnings. It is not a pre-tax deduction. So we leave payroll advance, leave frequency, leave include in W-2 wages, click OK. We've now added the deduction number 48 to our list of deductions. We're going to click apply and OK. Okay. Now we're going to go back into data setup and employee file, and we're going to find Jimmy's name from the menu in the upper left. We're going to go right down here to the very bottom right corner and click on the deductions tab. And we're going to click here and we're going to choose 48. There's payroll advance. However, we're going to leave the amount as 0. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this one right here as well. We don't need that. Sorry, folks, I didn't check that. We're going to leave the amount as 0. Okay, there's a method to my madness on this, and I'm going to explain why momentarily. Okay, we're going to click apply and OK. And then we're going to go over to system administration to the far right, account number setup. And we're going to find Jimmy's name again. And we're going to go right here in the center to the deductions tab. Here's the payroll advance. And we're going to click the down arrow and we're going to go all the way down to our expenses. And we're going to find 510302. I went a little too far, so we're going to scroll up a little bit. We'll have enhanced features in here when we get this moved over to our accounting program or our main Church Windows home screen later this year, folks. So there's 510302, the custodian salary that I debited the advance to. Okay, so we're going to now click apply and OK. All right. So right there before the final section, it says go to a system admin, account number setup, enter the salary expense account under the deductions tab for the employee receiving the advance. We've done that now. So the software now knows which account to credit when I deduct the deduction from Jimmy's paycheck whenever that occurs. Now, folks, you do have to sit down with the employee, and depending on the amount, you have to determine a repayment schedule. Okay? So maybe the employee is going to earn enough next paycheck that they'll be able to repay the whole amount. Maybe they'll request that you repay that over a couple of paychecks or several paychecks, depending on how much it is, okay? So what's going to happen now is when I go to payroll and calculate payroll, I would enter the pay period ended and settlement date just like I would normally. Then I'm going to go to next, and we're just going to focus on Jimmy this time, but you can do it with all of your other employees. You just have to do it, make sure you're clicking the right employee to have this occur. So we're going to do clear all and check just Jimmy Hilliard. Click next. So we notice down here that in the bottom right, Jimmy is an hourly employee set at a regular 45 hours at $16 an hour. Okay. But let's say presumably that he's requested that we repay this over, say, 2 paychecks. So the next 2 paychecks. So I could go to the deductions tab, and here's my pay advance, and I can just key in the amount that he is or that I've worked out or arranged with the employee as to whatever their repayment schedule is. So if Jimmy's pay, now again, if I don't enter anything and go to next and go to browse payments, he clearly earns enough on this that I could deduct the full $300 on his next check. okay? But that's a pretty severe ding to his gross or his net pay amount. So he's requested that, again, we do this over two. Oh, and it did this. Okay, so I have to add 48 back here. Payroll advance, there it is, and I'm going to put in 150 right here under that, and I just now process the payment or check just like I would normally. So his paycheck is now reduced by the 150. I can go to next, process the pay like I would normally, print a check for him, transfer it into accounting. Okay, so let's actually do 79,112. And we're going to say we printed it. Well, we're going to go to next. We're going to print that check for him. I just want to show you folks here how now when we go, we're going to print that to our check stock. Shows the deduction of the payroll advance. So we're now going to go to next. Yes, the check printed correctly. And now when I click finish, now notice here that under payroll deduction, pay advance shows 150 crediting 510,302. So I would now go ahead and complete that transfer into accounting. And I've now reduced his base salary expense by the 150, which is part of the 300. Okay. So now I need to go in, next paycheck, I'll have to go in and edit the 152, okay, to top that up to the 300 that he now owes us, the remaining balance. But just FYI, when we go into data setup and employee file, the other way to look at this is if you're unsure how much they still owe, find the employee, go to the deductions tab, and notice right down here at the very bottom, payroll advance. So there it tells me how much I've deducted from his paycheck, and I can do the math to determine how much he still owes. Okay. So that's essentially what it's talking about. To add the previously calculated advance in payroll, you will calculate the payroll as normal, as you would normally. On calculate payroll 3, just like we did on the deductions tab, enter the amount, the dollar amount that's going to be repaid, okay? And if the amount, and basically those second two bullet points talk about if the advance is to turn out to be less than the calculated net pay, the employee will receive the difference as the net pay of his check, of their paycheck. Or if the amount turns out to be more, then you can carry the difference as the deduction into the next pay date, next pay calculated. Like I said, folks, you have to determine what the agreed repayment schedule is with the employee, whether it's all on the next paycheck or spread out over a couple of paychecks or several paychecks, but you decide that. And then, but when the repayment is done, I just want to point this out, is once I go back into Jimmy's record here and I go to the deductions tab, and that year-to-date total now shows the full amount that I've paid back, I'm no longer going to deduct this. I can remove this deduction here, but because I've entered no amount or percent on it, it technically doesn't hurt if I leave it there, okay? But that's the reason why we don't enter the amount or the percent, is I want the control as to when that amount is going to be entered and how much, okay? So that, folks, is our topic for the day.